From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
The Mandalorian and Disney Plus has arrived. Star Wars storytelling changed forever on this Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. I am your host, David Amelati, as I always join you here on Beyond the Blast Doors, going solo as I give you my first reaction to The Mandalorian. Now that we've finally seen the first episode, Episode 1, Chapter 1, of The Mandalorian. Woke up this morning, 7:15 Central, logged onto my computer, registered for Disney Plus, got Mandalorian queued up, watched the episode. I had budgeted an hour. I think it comes in just under 40 minutes. And I watched this episode right before I went into work. And now I finished one job, and now I'm at home before the start of my second job. And I just wanted to take some time, and I wanted to have a shorter episode, a conversation, my initial reaction to this first episode, and I am overjoyed. Overwhelmed with emotions, and I'm sure you are too. We saw visuals, we heard sounds that are very familiar, but at the same time, very new. Star Wars storytelling forever changed now that Mandalorian has dropped on Disney Plus. This is a new era that ushers in with the release of the streaming service and the stories that can be told on this platform. It's really exciting, and I want to know what you think about The Mandalorian. Have you watched this episode by now? If not, why are you waiting to watch it? Tell me your reasons. Maybe your country doesn't allow you to view it yet. I know there's some countries that residents there won't be able to watch The Mandalorian until it becomes available in March. That is a long time to wait, and I'm assuming that all those people are off Twitter. So you can already go ahead, start in the comments down below. Let me know what you liked about this first episode of The Mandalorian. I want to take time, though, and remind you, though, that here on Beyond the Blast Doors, you can always catch our live show Sunday, 11 a.m. Central, live on YouTube. You saw me looking over because I cue my own graphics. Episode 73 is what you're watching right now. If you also want to catch this in the car, you can always listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We also will be releasing this episode first on Patreon. So our Patreon supporters will be part of this conversation first, and then we're making this episode available later on for the world to see. And it's not just Beyond the Blast Doors live on the Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. The show now I kind of more so affectionately call it BTBD Live. But you can also find us on Streaming Star Wars. This is on Friday nights. And I want you to look at this graphic, remember it forever. Streaming Star Wars. We had the world premiere, we called it, last Friday, November 8th, and it was a blast. Pete Fletzer and I just having a lot of fun with that show. And it's a situation where you can catch Streaming Star Wars live on Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. That start and stop time will fluctuate as the season continues just because lives are busy, schedules are busy, and also release times for episodes will change. So Friday nights, Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel, be there for Streaming Star Wars. You can also get the audio replay, the podcast version, anywhere where you can listen to podcasts on the Around the Galaxy fan talk show feed. So yes, two worlds combined, Pete Fletzer and myself. But here we are in a new day and age of Star Wars storytelling where we are joined with some of the greatest characters that we may ever encounter in Star Wars storytelling. Okay, that's a little overhyping it. Maybe, who knows? This first episode gave me everything that I wanted and more. And let me first begin with the fact that I have been very vocal about how I just love the aesthetics of Star Wars. And this is something that we see mimicked in all of Star Wars storytelling, whether it's on screen with the movies, on television with Disney Plus now, but you also had the Clone Wars and Rebels, and you have the Resistance. There's aesthetics visually and with audio that is consistent through Star Wars. I think that's one of the reasons why maybe Rian Johnson got a lot of flack, because he broke some of those aesthetic traditions to tell Star Wars in a new and different way. And so I was really excited just by the start of this episode. And just so you know, while I'm having this conversation with you, I've actually got the episode playing on my phone just below me. So I'm kind of keeping pace with the episode itself, but we also have these visuals here to my right, so that way, your left. So that way we can still kind of feel immersed in the footage. Big copyright issue if I had the episode playing right now beside me. I digress. Aesthetically, the first thing that I love are these wide shots that we're getting of the landscapes. We still have some more information to learn about as far as what are these planets that we're visiting. who are these bigger players. But, in this first episode, you watch it, you get Pedro Pascal's The Mandalorian. We meet Nick Nolte's Khalil is how I'm saying it. That could be wrong. The Ugnaught, right? We have, Carl Weathers is here as well. Werner Herzog is there. Some stormtroopers are there. I don't think these are spoilers. These are just, we've seen these characters in the trailer, and I'm mentioning some of the characters that we're seeing in this first episode. Again, no spoilers. There are blurs. Okay, those exist. I don't think that's a spoiler either. But what I really enjoy are these landscapes, these large, vast new planets that we are arriving at. While I'm not sure the name of some of these planets at this time, I think we're all still trying to figure out, okay, what's this planet? What's this character's name? What's the location? What's the city here that they're meeting at? These are all questions that we will unpack as time goes on. But really, love the wide shots. You're seeing ships come in and out of frame, and I really like the camera work there. Keeping in mind, this is Dave Filoni's very first live-action directing opportunity. His directorial debut with live action, I guess, is a better way to say it. And I think he crushes it. From the visuals of the framing, it feels very Star Wars. I think the essence of a Western is captured pretty well. I think that is really complemented here by the music. It's really satisfying to listen to the soundtrack, and I'm excited to see what happens when we finish like a season. What that entire score is really going to sound like. We make a lot of, we've made kind of a big deal that we have Ludwig joining us from the Marvel Universe, and he's the one that did the score for Black Panther. And you're getting, it sounds like you're watching a Western. But it's as if it's also like this like tribal thread in there. And I like that because I think it musically captures the emotions, the vibe of the Mandalorian culture. I won't tell you what happened because this is a spoiler-free show, but there is something lore-wise that I think that any fan of the Mandalorian culture will really embrace. If you like just learning about the cultures in Star Wars, you will really enjoy a scene with the Mandalorian. It involves his armor. And it's really cool. The first person I thought of, I'm watching this, and I did not expect this to happen, but the first person I think of watching this show is not myself, selfishly, or unselfishly, I guess. It's our good friend Jesse Buck, co-host of Beyond the Blast Doors, who is still recovering. He should be back to strength. He should be here. I think the Mandalorian episode, Chapter 1, had to have healed him. He resurrected. He will be resurrected and back with us on Sunday, and it'll be interesting to hear his take on this, because going into the drop of Disney Plus, I think it was about a month ago, it was 4 episodes ago, Jesse's with me, and he's talking about how in the EU, the colors on the Mandalorian's armor was a story. And these colors told the story of the wearer of the armor. There's probably a better way to say that, but you get my point. And it's fascinating that in this show, we see something else to do with the armor, and I was really just enthralled. I thought it was really cool how the armor so quickly in this show is important. And then I think back to what the conversation that Jesse shared with us several episodes back on the show, and knowing that these colors might have certain meaning, I think it's going to be fun to see how this story unfolds and maybe how it does or does not reconnect to the armor. Really fascinating. The music we talked about. I've talked about kind of the shots, how they're structured. There's a speeder in a shot. This isn't ruining anything, but the speeder, the way it comes into frame, kind of off the left, and how it kind of comes into the shot, and the camera pans. I feel like I'm watching like an updated version of New Hope. Like if George Lucas shot A New Hope in 2019, I think it would look like this series. There are canon connections throughout this episode, which is really cool. It's a nice payback. Not payback. It's a nice reward for investing your energy into the Star Wars lore. If you watch the movies, if you watch the TV shows, you read the comics and the books, you consume all of this content, you're given a reward here multiple times in this first episode of The Mandalorian, and the payoff is big. Like the ending is not what I expected. There was several reports a couple of weeks ago that came out and said, listen, there is going to be a huge reveal in the first episode of The Mandalorian that you are not prepared for. And I was not prepared for it. It was unexpected. It doesn't change like my whole entire understanding of Star Wars. I don't think it'll have that impact on you, but it is pretty shocking. It is pretty shocking. And it's nothing that I'm surprised by it, but I'm not surprised that this would happen with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau at the helm. These two are going to teach us so much about Mandalorian culture. They are going to clearly, I think, articulate the status of the galaxy, this time period after the rise and fall of the Empire, right? We're 5 years past the fall of the Empire and Return of the Jedi. And this reveal at the end of the show really satisfied me in a lot of ways. Now, if you're wondering what just happened, I kind of like flinched this way. There's no earthquake happening where I'm at. I'm pretty sure my cat just like pummeled a Christmas decoration. So, live update from the homestead. Really just happy also with the Mandalorian's presentation on camera. It was leaked out yesterday. A new version of the Mandalorian. It was requested that was taken down. I think it was Yak Face that posted that. It was taken down. So glad that they respected that, took it down. Really cool look, though. It's like a heavy-duty Mandalorian. The Mandalorian we've seen in the trailer is the Mandalorian that we're getting here in this first episode. It's Pedro's voice. Sounds good. And I like the amount he talks. I pretty much could leave it at that. I really like the way the Mandalorian talks. I really like the way the Mandalorian moves. I like how the Mandalorian doesn't really show you disrespect, doesn't show you respect. You just seem to be existing in this world with the Mandalorian. Reputation is known. This man is loaded with weapons, and he is skilled. It is thrilling to watch him engage stormtroopers. So, we see a glimpse of the Empire in this. Not a whole lot, but, based on the trailer, the footage that we've seen, the special peek from Monday Night Football, X, Y, and Z, we've seen this footage. We know the Empire's going to play some kind of role, at least, the remnants of the Empire. So it was really cool to see that, and, the way the Mandalorian engages with Werner Herzog's character, or Werner Herzog's character, however you want to say his name. But it's really fascinating because at first I'm like, well, this is like a slow burn. And I'm like, well, no, this is episodic. So the story is going to allow us to really let everything breathe. We're going to take our time with these characters. And I'm really excited for this opportunity to really dig in, not just to the Mandalorian, but all these characters that we encounter. And that goes for Greef Karga as well. He's running this bounty hunter guild. He hires the Mandalorian. Business is going well for Greef, but it's going almost too well. There's not enough bounties to select, but there's one. You can figure it out how now. Herzog comes into this. All these other characters come into this. Very fascinating to kind of see how this plays out over 40 minutes or so, and it gets suspense. I mean, the suspense is, I think, I mentioned how it kind of felt at first like a slow kill, but it's not. It's just the suspenseness of it, the suspensefulness of this really builds over time, and it's really satisfying to just kind of like sit back and relax. It was really nice to be in the living room and just fire up Disney Plus, watch this show, and then consume all of this. And also it was nice the fact that when I watched this, it wasn't constant, oh, I see that, or oh, let me listen to the music. I don't really want to be sucked in this moment. Like the first time watching this episode, I was pretty immersed. And it was just fun to see these. We've seen deserts in Star Wars, but we haven't seen this planet before. And we've seen like blue environments. I mean, like Kamino. Like, how Kamino looked like bluish and grayish? That's how we get this one planet. I felt like, I thought the shot was blue. I was like, this doesn't maybe look right. But then I was like, oh no, this is the way you look on this planet. Everything's kind of gray. Everything's kind of blue. I liked the diversity of the planets. Something that I really like about Star Wars in general is how like every Star Wars story seems to take you to 2 or 3 different unique locations. And that was something that was really important to George Lucas. I talk about this all the time, but when you watch those original trilogy movies on VHS, you get those Leonard Maltin interviews beforehand. And something that Lucas like made a point to talk about before Return of the Jedi was the fact that, I try and give you 3 different environments. So you got the Death Star, you got Endor, you got the desert, you got the spaceships with, Return of the Jedi. You know, you keep going back, but every movie had like a very unique environment compared to the one before and compared to the one that's after. And you got a nice variety here in this first episode of The Mandalorian. You know, there's so much storytelling that can happen with no words, just with the visuals. And I've touched on the visual aesthetic already once before, just with the framing and, you know, there's use of wipes and the use of transitions here is very reminiscent to, you know, that Star Wars aesthetic, that tradition of visual storytelling. And there is a shot in this that is maybe in my top 10 shots now in all of Star Wars. And to give you some background, I mean, professionally, I think you know this by now. I work in television broadcast. I really enjoy working with the camera. I like finding, you know, cool shots. There are some really unique visuals, and just you can just take frames of Star Wars, and it's pretty much art. And you get a shot like this from within the cockpit of the Mandalorian ship. And when you watch the episode, if you haven't already, or maybe you have watched, you know what I'm talking about. You are getting kind of the perspective of the Mandalorian, and it is a really cool in the atmosphere shot of the ship, and I really enjoy it, and it's probably going to be the background of my desktop here in the very near future. You're looking for a time check. You're wondering, well, we talked for a few minutes already, and you're wondering, where am I in the episode of The Mandalorian? I believe I mentioned this once before. I have the episode playing while I'm talking with you in this moment to kind of keep me in pace, maybe jog my memory of certain things. And there is a scene here, the scene that I'm at, I referenced before about the lore of The Mandalorian. I won't tell you what that scene is, but I want you to be excited for when you see it, because I think it's really cool. And it also introduces a character that I wasn't aware about before I watched this episode, which was really fun, because when you're invested in the Star Wars as much as maybe you and I are, you're reading all the articles from the Vanity Fair and the Entertainment Weeklies and the Empire, and you're watching all these releases of footage, and you're just kind of wondering, how much of this is really going to be new? How much of this is really going to interest me? And I mentioned before, you know, as I'm watching the show, I felt immersed. I wasn't spending all my energy being like, oh, there's the clip that I saw from the Super Bowl or the Monday Night Football trailer, or there's the thing I read about in this article. It might have happened for a split second, but nothing to really distract me. I mean, I started this episode. I did not look away from the screen for the 36 minutes or the 39 minutes and 40 seconds. You know, I was there, and I'm sure you were as well. Just catching my breath, really. I'm so happy. There is so much potential. There's so much excitement. There are so many things to go back and comb through this episode and try and find. Oh, there's that shot that I really like. I cannot wait until you watch the episode. I almost wonder if it's worth it. Maybe this would be something for Patreon. Maybe I watch, because they're like, less than 40 minutes. Maybe I watch each episode, and that's like a Patreon exclusive where, I'm watching this stuff and we're able to maybe that's what we can do. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Would you sign up for Patreon as low as $2 a month? Would you do that to watch each episode with me and get our instant reaction and commentary? Or maybe that should be what we do for when we meet our next Patreon goal. You let me know down in the comments below, or you can tweet at me at BTBDavid or at BTBD Star Wars. So we've talked about the aesthetics. We've talked about the look and the sound of The Mandalorian. We've talked about the music here. There seems to be a limited amount of opportunity as far as where the story can go, because we don't know much. All we know is from Jon Favreau is that this is a story after Jango and Boba Fett. There is this other a warrior that emerges in the Star Wars universe. This is the Mandalorian. This is who we're following in this series. After the fall of the Empire, but before the emergence of the First Order. And this series will depict this gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy and far from the reach of the New Republic. So I'm trying to do my best to read this quote from Jon Favreau. But what I'm hearing when I hear those words read out loud is, we're not going to be, you have the main events of the Star Wars galaxy, okay? The main line, okay? And this is where I would put the Skywalker episodic movies, okay? And I feel like there is, what's happening in the galaxy, and The Mandalorian is going to be kind of over here, kind of like a tangent. but I fully expect this to be brought to the main. This will influence things in the galaxy. I firmly believe that. I think that if you're doing one season and already have production on season number 2 underway, The Mandalorian is going to be. We are going to be witnessing mainline activity in the Star Wars galaxy, if that makes sense. Again, this happening between Return of the Jedi and the Force Awakens in 2015, right? Obviously, this happens between there, but how much it influences the main story, I guess, is my point. I think it'll be just a little offline, but I could see it swinging in. It just depends on who the Mandalorian encounters and who his future bounties are. I think that's going to be a main factor here. I will tell you that who I thought or what I thought was going to be driving this first episode and what the Mandalorian was going to be looking for, how soon he would collect his first bounty. I got all of that wrong. Gets it all done in this first episode. So now I'm really like, well, I have no idea what's happening the rest of this first season because I thought that this bounty was going to be the overall journey of the first season. We take care of it in 40 minutes. I'm like, well, now what's next? Okay, well, I guess Moff Gideon is going to get involved a little bit more. Maybe Werner Herzog is going to be involved a little bit more. Maybe IG-11 involved a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, I was so amazed that a lot of the footage that we've already seen, because of all these sneak peek special looks, trailers, teasers, we really only saw the first few moments of this first episode, Chapter 1. So I got no idea what's going to happen next, man. We'll see what Gina Carano brings to this series. We'll see what other new characters pop up. Canon connections galore. I think it's interesting. We get images of the Clone Wars. We see that in the trailer, and I believe in the sneak peek. At least we saw it in the trailer. And then we're seeing a young child. We're figuring out what that young child and those images of the Clone Wars mean for the greater story. So we get some stuff answered there. So as far as like a first episode goes, I think this was really solid because it really wettens the whistle. I think that's the right. Wetten the reed? Well, that would be for a woodwind instrument. I'm not the best with cliches. I guess my point is, this episode does exactly what it needs for me, and hopefully for you, which is one, you've seen some of the story in context. You've gotten to learn some of these characters, and your energy level is at a high. And now you're just craving the next episode, which comes out Friday. At least, and when we're having this conversation, when I'm recording this episode right now, it is Tuesday, right? So on Friday, we get another episode, and then every Friday following. This is really exciting. And this is why Disney, Lucasfilm, made the decision, we are going to do these episodes on a weekly basis. We'll give you one on Tuesday, we'll give you another one on Friday, and then we're going to have you come back every week, every Friday, for that one episode. And they're going to get us watching this episode maybe multiple times between now and the release of the next episode. But also it gives us time to go explore what else Disney Plus has to offer. There is Mandalorian content. Duh. There is Marvel content. I'm going to go back and explore all the stuff that got released from the vault being open, so I'm really excited for that. It also allows us a lot of time to have conversations like this where we're able to engage friends and peers on social media and have a conversation about what we like, what we don't like, what we think will happen, what we think will not happen. It's a really fun time to be a Star Wars fan. And, I mentioned having this conversation with other people. I think it's a really good opportunity to just say, please, don't spoil this for other people. I try to keep this super generic. I've tried to tell you the things that really stood out to me. I haven't even mentioned the diversity in alien species. If you really like that cantina scene from A New Hope, you're going to freaking love this episode because there's 2 or 3 scenes where you're not just getting diversity in, like, a humanoid species, but you're getting diversity in the alien species, which is really cool. And, you're getting, different, I think you see a Kryn, which is a Mon-Cala species. You're seeing a few others. I also think that based on what we saw in a trailer and what we get in this first episode, a little bit of misdirect done through editing, which I think is interesting. But Yeah, just a lot of cool aliens that we've seen before and we haven't seen. You get these blurgs that we've seen the Mandalorian riding on. So, I mean, just a really cool variety there. The believability of it is really fun. And I think because you start recognizing all these characters, these character types you have seen and have not seen, that's what helps the believability, the immersiveness so effective. Because you're just, oh, what's this person? What's he or she up to? It's just really well done. You get the Dave Filoni touch. You really do with this episode. How things are framed, how things are shot. I've talked about that visual aesthetic. You're watching visually it feels very similar to the Clone Wars, and and I expect that, right? Because he is this cowboy wearing. Anthony Breznican did this article for Vanity Fair yesterday. It dropped. He previewed it on streaming Star Wars this past Friday. You can still watch that episode right now on Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel, first playlist or the second playlist on our homepage, streaming Star Wars. Amon Pletzer. You can watch that full interview now. He talks about just the fact that Dave Filoni is this wolf-loving, cowboy-wearing dude who loves Star Wars, studied at the helm of Lucas studied at the altar, I should say, of George Lucas for a decade, working on Clone Wars. George Lucas's final go at Star Wars storytelling, Dave Filoni was right there studying under him, and you see it. If you've watched the Clone Wars, you're seeing Filoni's mark on this episode. I think this is a solid base for the rest of the season to build upon. I'm sure there will be critics who say it felt slow. I'm sure there are going to be critics that say The Mandalorian doesn't talk enough. He's a loner. He's a bounty hunter. He's a gunslinger. He's had a traumatic past that we've already come to learn about. I think it fits. I think it works. I think it's okay just to let yourself really enjoy it. You want to? I give it like an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I really freaking liked it. There wasn't anything that I watched that I was like, well, I didn't like that. I mean, what am I going to complain about? Well, I didn't get enough Imperial presence in this first episode. Okay, there's like 7 more episodes to go. I think I'm going to get my Empire. I think I'm going to get my splintered, fractured, faction, whatever word you want to use. I'm going to get some more Empire later on. So I'm okay about it. What we've established is this Mandalorian means business. He gets around. He has a reputation. He's effective. He's really good with a blaster. I mean, there is a scene that he shares with IG-11. Man, I believe it. I believe he can do that. I believe a droid can do that. I think it's pretty great. Trandoshans, they're pretty deadly. I'll leave it at that. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. You've watched the episode. You know what I'm talking about. You haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode, and you come back and watch, and then you'll be like, oh, that's what he meant. We are a couple of days away from the release of episode 2 of The Mandalorian. It drops on this Friday on Disney+. We'll be live Friday night for Streaming Stars, where we will talk really in depth. This Sunday, I should say, for Beyond BTBD Live, we're going to be talking about J.J. Abrams and how he's taking more risks, or I guess at this point, since the movie is complete, how he took more risks with The Rise of Skywalker, thanks to Rian Johnson and his work on The Last Jedi, which I totally buy. We heard that JJ played it kind of safe for The Force Awakens, and he wants to take some more risks with Rise of Skywalker, and I'm all for it. I'm looking forward to it. We'll also talk about Rian Johnson saying F you to the fans who don't like diversity, the diversity that Johnson brought in The Last Jedi. I happen to agree with them. I think those are all really good points. Star Wars, you have all these species. That's diversity. You want more species, you want more diversity. The fact that a director is being attacked for allowing people of different ethnicities to have a role in Star Wars, there should be. There should be. Star Wars, the galaxy, it has to reflect the world we live in. And if it's going to have all these characters that it does, it needs to have the characters that live in our world. Some of us are white. Some of us are black. Some of us are tan. Some of us aren't. Some of us are tall. Some of us are short. Tell that story. We'll talk about that more on Sunday morning on Beyond the Blast Doors Live. But those are a couple of things that we're talking about. We're also talking about a few things that we've been working on over at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. We really want BeyondTheBlastDoors.com to be where our conversation starts. And we want to continue that conversation through our live shows. whether you're joining Pete and I on Streaming Star Wars or, the flagship show, BTBD Live, with myself, Gilbert, and Jesse. We want that conversation to start on the website, and we're working really hard to create daily content there. And then we bring some of that conversation over into the live shows. Would love for you to go visit BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. Let us know what you think about the website, the new features that we've added there. Direct links to our shows, for example, and then reaction to the headline news. We're not breaking news like Vanity Fair, but we can give you a summarized version of their story and give you our take. Of course, linking to the original story because that's out of respect. Really enjoyed the opportunity to have this time to just kind of vent in a way, talk about what I've seen, how that's translated in my head. I'm just seeing the scene now. All I'm saying is it's Mandalorian, it's IG-11, it's Adore, and things happen. It's great. Again, if you've watched, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not watched the episode yet, you have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about. This is fun. I'm just really excited to see where this series is going to go. Again, we get our second episode of The Mandalorian this Friday, streaming on Disney+. And I just want to remind you again that you can always watch Beyond the Blast Doors live Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Central on YouTube. This is episode 73. And in case you're not able to watch it all on video, you can also catch it in your ears only. That's right. The podcast version of our show available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And this episode, trying something new, releasing this episode first on Patreon because we're not trying to fuel people's concerns about giving spoilers. So I think we can agree this was pretty spoiler-free, letting our patrons to tell us what they like and what they don't like first. Then we're sharing this with you so that way you can let us know how you like this format as far as like a quick reaction to the episodes. And then we'll go more in depth on Fridays with Streaming Star Wars. And just one more time, I want you to know that Streaming Star Wars is every Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central here on Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel, Pete Fletcher and myself. And because of that, we'll have the video, the live show hosted here. And if you want the podcast version of Streaming Star Wars, you just need to find the Around the Galaxy podcast feed anywhere where you listen to podcasts. So with that said, it is time to wrap this show up. It's been a lot of fun having this conversation, a condensed episode just to talk about The Mandalorian. It's been so much fun. I appreciate you taking the time to sit back, relax, and listen. I mean, you've watched this episode maybe once, twice, 3 times, and now you've sat through this, and hopefully you're commenting down below, and you're letting me know exactly where you stand on this episode, what you liked, what you didn't like. There's so much to like. I think, oh man, what is there not to like? I don't know. I'm sure someone will tell me, but I think this is pretty solid. But let me know down in the comments below. Also, be sure you tweet at me at BTBDDavid. Also, the main show, BTBD Star Wars. Either way, we'll see it. We'll converse. That's the word I was trying to say. It's our Star Wars conversation, and it wouldn't be made possible without you. So thank you for supporting Beyond the Blast Doors, and we'll see you soon. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.